Some people think wickedness always announces itself. It doesn't. Sometimes it smiles at you, greets you good morning, and even sells you breakfast. For years, there was a woman in one part of the city whom everybody simply called Mama Akara. The funny thing was that nobody seemed to know her real name anymore. If you stopped 10 people on the street and asked them who Mama Akara was, every single one of them would point you in the same direction. But if you asked them her actual name, most of them would just stare at you. Somewhere along the line, her Akara became more famous than she was. Every morning, long before sunrise, people were already gathering around her small roadside stand. Workers rushing to the office, bus drivers preparing for the day, market women, students, parents buying breakfast for their children. Everybody wanted Mama Akara's akara, and everybody was afraid of one thing, missing it. By 6 o'clock in the morning, customers were already dropping money in advance. Mama Akara, keep 1,000 naira own for me. Mama Akara, I'm taking my children to school first. Don't finish before I come back. Mama Akara, abeg, keep 2,000 naira own. I'll be here in 10 minutes. One commercial bus driver stopped there so often that everybody knew him. Every morning he would slow down near the stand and shout through his window, Mama Akara, keep my own own. Then he would speed away before she could answer. One woman used to send her teenage son every morning with money. The boy never bought anything else. His only assignment was to secure Akara before it finished. The funniest customers were the ones who behaved as if they were buying concert tickets. If they arrived and discovered everything had finished, they would stand there looking personally betrayed. Finished? Yes. All of it? Yes. You mean there's nothing left? Not even one. Then they would shake their heads and walk away like people who had just received bad news from the hospital. Mama Akara always laughed whenever she saw those reactions. The woman sold out almost every single day. Meanwhile, other Akara sellers remained by the roadside till afternoon trying to finish theirs. That was another mystery. Nobody understood why her own tasted different. Even her competitors didn't understand it. In fact, some of the people selling akara nearby were secretly her customers. They would buy from her, take it home, break it apart carefully, examine it, taste it, discuss it. One woman even claimed she had discovered the secret recipe. She spent 2 weeks bragging about it. Then she fried her own version. People tasted it, looked at her, and said, "This is not Mama Akara's own." The woman nearly cried. The reputation grew bigger every year. Soon her akara was traveling to places she had never visited herself: banks, schools, government offices, private companies, construction sites. People carried it everywhere. One of those places was a small accounting firm on the other side of town. That was where Esther worked. The first time Esther tasted Mama Akara's akara, it wasn't even hers. One Monday morning, she arrived at work and found a colleague opening a nylon bag. The smell filled the office almost immediately. People began drifting toward the table. "What did you buy?" "Akara." "From where?" The woman smiled proudly. "Mama Akara." Several people immediately stretched out their hands. "Give me one." "Me too." "Abeg, leave some for me." Esther laughed. "You people are behaving as if this akara was imported from London. Just taste it first." So she did. She picked one, took a bite, then another, then another. The room suddenly became very quiet around her. She looked at the akara, looked at her colleague, then looked at the remaining pieces inside the nylon. "Where did you buy this?" The office exploded with laughter. We knew it. We knew she would react like that. Another customer has joined. From that day, Esther became one of the many people trapped by Mama Akara's reputation. Every workday morning, she stopped there before heading to the office. At first, it was once a week, then twice, then almost every day. The problem was that she was never early enough. Almost every time she arrived, there was already a queue, and on several occasions, she met empty trays. One morning, she arrived breathless after rushing from the bus stop. The trays were empty again. Esther stared at them. No. Mama Akara laughed. It finished 15 minutes ago. Esther looked around in disbelief. How does akara finish before normal people even wake up? The customers nearby burst into laughter. One old man shook his head. My daughter, if you want Mama Akara's food, you have to compete with the birds. Another woman added, some of us wake up before sunrise because of this akara. Everybody laughed, but Esther was serious, very serious, because she had been hearing the same story for months. Finished, 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 always finished. That afternoon at work, she was still thinking about it. By closing time, she had already made up her mind. The next day, she would wake up earlier than usual. Not office early, not market early, proper early. For once, she wanted to be among the first customers to arrive. The following morning, Esther woke up before dawn. Not office early, not market early, proper early. The kind of early that makes people ask whether somebody is traveling. Even her younger sister sat up when she heard the movement. Where are you going? To buy akara. The girl stared at her for a few seconds. At this time, Esther laughed. If I no go early, the akara go finish before I reach. A few minutes later, she was already on her way. The roads were still quiet. A handful of motorcycle riders sat by the roadside discussing football. Some tea sellers were arranging their kettles. The sky was only beginning to brighten. For once, Esther felt confident. Today she would finally buy as much akara as she wanted. No queue, no disappointment, no hearing. It has finished. By the time she reached the junction, she slowed down. Mama Akara was already there. The charcoal had not fully caught fire. The trays were still empty. The stand wasn't properly arranged. Yet the woman herself was already around. Esther stood nearby, waiting. That was when she noticed movement near the abandoned building. Everybody knew that place. The back of the building was dirty and overgrown. People sometimes sneaked there when they wanted privacy. A few moments later, somebody stepped out. It was Mama Akara, and she was carrying one of the buckets she normally used around her food preparation. The sight stayed in Esther's mind. At first, she ignored it. Then she couldn't. A few minutes later, she mentioned it casually. Mama Akara dismissed the question. Then another customer overheard. Then another. Then another. Before long, the conversation had spread through the queue. What happened? Which buckets? Why was she there? The more people asked questions, the more uncomfortable Mama Akara became. She kept changing her explanation. One minute, she said she went to check something. The next minute, she said she forgot something there. Then she became annoyed and told everybody to leave the matter alone. That only made people more suspicious. By now, the queue had almost stopped moving. Traders crossed the road to listen. Motorcycle riders parked. People abandoned their own business. Even some of the akara sellers nearby came over. One elderly woman finally said, Mama Akara, if nothing happened, just explain and make everybody rest. The crowd immediately agreed. Yes, now. Just tell us. Why you they avoid the question? For the first time, Mama Akara looked frightened. Real frightened. The confidence she normally carried was gone. The smile was gone. The laughter was gone. She sat down slowly on a bench and covered her face. The crowd became quiet. Nobody expected that reaction. For several seconds, nobody spoke. Then she started crying. Not small tears. Proper crying. The kind that comes when somebody knows there is nowhere left to run. One woman looked at another. What is going on? Another person shook his head. This matter no good. When Mama Akara finally spoke, her voice was shaking. Years earlier, according to her, business had been terrible. She would fry akara and go home, with most of it unsold. Sometimes she borrowed money to buy beans. Sometimes she couldn't even afford enough charcoal. She became desperate. One day somebody introduced her to a native doctor. The man promised that customers would never stop coming. He gave her strange instructions and told her to add her feces as one of the ingredients during preparation. At first she refused. Then hunger changed her mind. She followed the instructions. A week later, business improved. A month later, customers doubled, then tripled, then multiplied. Soon people were traveling across town just to buy her akara. By now the crowd was completely silent. Some people looked angry, others looked confused. One man asked, "So all these years you know say this thing no correct?" Mama Akara lowered her head. She didn't answer. The silence was answer enough. The reactions came immediately. One woman sat down on the roadside. A bus driver removed his cap and held his head. Another customer kept repeating the same sentence. After all these years, over and over again. After all these years, people began remembering. One man had been eating there for nearly 7 years. Another woman had introduced her entire family. One customer remembered serving the akara during her daughter's naming ceremony. Another remembered buying it every single weekday before work. The feeling that spread through the crowd wasn't just shock, it was betrayal, pure betrayal. Somebody pulled out a phone and started recording. Then another person, then another. Within minutes, several people were filming. The argument exploded. People shouted, people cursed. Some customers accused her of deceiving them. Others demanded she return their money. The crowd became impossible to control. Somebody overturned a bench. Another person kicked over a tray. Before long, the stand that had made her famous was being destroyed by angry customers. That was when somebody called the police. By the time officers arrived, the entire junction was in chaos. The police struggled to calm people down. Several officers pushed through the crowd and escorted Mama Akara away for her own safety. As the police vehicle drove off, people were still shouting. Some were angry, some were crying, some simply stood there staring at the empty stand. Esther looked at the time and nearly screamed. She was terribly late for work, but somehow she felt the delay had been worth it. She had just witnessed the biggest piece of gossip the area had seen in years. By the time she arrived at the office, everybody noticed immediately. One colleague laughed. "Ha, so the famous akara finally make you late?" Another person joined in. "At least tell us, say you bought enough for everybody." The office burst into laughter. Esther dropped her handbag on her desk. She didn't laugh. That immediately caught their attention. One colleague frowned. "What happened?" Esther looked around the office. Then she said, "If I tell Una wetin happened this morning, some of Una no go eat lunch today." The room became quiet. The same woman who first introduced her to Mama Akara laughed nervously. "Abeg, stop joking." "I'm serious." People abandoned their work and gathered around her desk. Then Esther told them everything. At first, nobody believed her. The argument started immediately. "Impossible. No, she must have misunderstood. That woman has been selling for years." Even Esther understood their reaction. If somebody else had told her the story a day earlier, she probably wouldn't have believed it either. Then she brought out her phone. The room fell silent. The video was shaky. The crowd was shouting. Questions were flying from every direction. Then came the confession. When the video ended, nobody spoke. One woman slowly pushed away the breakfast she had bought that morning. Another covered her mouth. The security man who had eaten there for years simply sat down and stared into space. The first thing he said was, "Jesus Christ." By lunchtime, the story had reached another office. By evening, it had reached markets, churches, bus parks, and residential compounds. The following morning, something unexpected happened. Other akara sellers started suffering. Customers no longer trusted anybody. One woman selling akara became angry because people kept asking strange questions before buying. Another seller joked that she now needed a certificate to prove her akara was normal. People laughed, but business dropped. Trust had been damaged, not just for one seller, for everybody. And that was how the most famous akara seller in the area lost everything in a single morning. All because one customer decided to wake up early. Now let me ask you something. If this was a story about your favorite food vendor, what would you do? Tell me honestly in the comments. And if you enjoyed today's story, Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss another story from Abigail Tells Tales. Until next time, thank you for listening.